You're welcome back from that short break. This is still the Gavel. Up next is the concluding part of the interview with the chairman of the House Committee on Public Procurement. It's worrisome when you say that it appears we may not be following, even a lot of the agencies may not be following this set rules. And that brings me to sanctions. What is being done or can be done to bring these agencies into play?
Under Section 5 of the law, which borders on the functions of the bureau under Section 5P is mandated to undertake post-procurement audit of every MDAs and lay the report before us, before the Parliament. Okay, so we here, what we do is to support BPP. One, we ensure that BP does the right thing. We also support them by also engaging all these MDAs. We also educate in the process. Sometimes when we invite them, they go back, more knowledgeable, more happier, well informed when we interface and interact with them, because we try as much as possible to draw their attentions to the provision of the law. Because if they go against the provision of the law, then Section 58.5 applies.
And what is that?
If they are caught, minimum imprisonment of 5 years, summary dismissal from work. Section 53, if BPP or we discover or suspect any infractions, Section 53 asked BPP to refer such agency for investigation to EFCC or ICPC. So any CEO or PAMSEC or DG or MD, he can easily, lead himself or herself to Kuje if you are not careful.
But between me and you've been here, just as you made us understand, before even the act was put into place. Yes. Can you recall anybody that these laws have, or yes, any agency that has been called or held up by this?
Yes, lots of people. But you see, through the practice of this law, we have also observed some loopholes. Because when you look at trials, the convictions, and how those convictions that we got, how they were overturned at the higher courts of the land, then it tells you that this law needs to be looked at again. I'll give you an example. Look at NPA. My leader, Chief Bode George, and his co-travelers on the board of NPA were the first, set of people that are convicted. And very unfortunately, they served 2 years sentence imprisonment. But they appealed that sentence. Before the appeal could be heard and concluded at the Supreme Court, they had finished their term, which was painful. Okay? So the Supreme Court, discharged them and acquitted them. Look at the former MD of NIMASA. The lower court convicted him. By the Court of Appeal, he was freed. So I'm currently studying that judgment. And that might lead me to bring an amendment to the law.
Okay, now, recently, I think last month to be precise, former President Olusegun Obasanjo called for a review of public procurement processes. He said the country's procurement process probably construed the largest source of leakages from awards of contracts, supply, service contracts, and others. Provisions appeared to have room for bribes and kickbacks. What's your reaction to his position?
Well, like I observed, we've had an opportunity of practicing this law in the last 7 years. And the truth of the matter is that Yes. To some extent, I will agree with the president, our former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. But I put it to you, the law, one of the best law thrown out of the parliament is Procurement Act. So, and if anybody intends, like our president Muhammadu Buhari, quest to wage war against corruption, one of the tools that he needs to work with is the Procurement Act. If you deploy Procurement Act to the letter, I can tell you, corruption will be minimized in this country. But then we're human beings, human errors, or trust people. They try to, find loopholes, how they can, outsmart the due processes of the law. So through oversight, we have seen some. We've seen some, like for example, issues bordering on conflict of interest. We've seen issues bordering on contract splitting. We've seen people people really forging the prerequisite requirements. We've seen people going to court to sue an affidavit to say that they don't have any interest in the procuring agency when in actual fact they have not been with the people there. We've seen some people being maltreated, being treated, unjustifiably. So we have that experience. So, and we also have a lot of investigation that we are carrying on.
If you're making your advice to the president, and right now, 3 years into his time, he hasn't focused, from what you are saying, on this procurement, how would you then judge our work or the claim by the administration that it wants to work on that corruption?
Well, sincerely speaking, if there's anything that's earned this president's credibility, is toga that he carries across the globe, that people see him as an anti-corruption person, But this council, this Bureau Council needs to be put in place. The National Council on the Public Procurement should be put in place so that they can do their work, so that BPP can be under thorough supervision. I do agree that the Parliament has, through the powers of oversight, enormous power to oversight BPP. But by the approach of this law, a council ought to be in place that they ought to report to. That council is not in place.
So, what would be your reaction to those who may say that the legislature has not done enough to then ensure that this bill, which was passed by it, is faithfully used to ensure delivery? Because if you have the oversight, if you see something, you've observed, just as you said, that even a lot of people are observing in breach. Those that may say you have not done enough, what will be your reaction to them?
My reaction will be that the executive has no respect for the parliament. That is the major problem. There are MDAs, there are agencies of government, you invite them, they will put up excuses. I can tell you some ministries in the last 3 years, bring your books for audit, bring your records for evaluation. They will be putting up one defense or the other. One defense or the other, it's terrible. Some parastatals feel so untouchable, feel so big, and they simply do not have respect for the parliament. And the solution is that the constitution also gives the parliament enormous powers. We can summon any hearing agencies of government. The parliament is also a quasi-judicial body. So power of investigation, we have all that. But even when you investigate and you come up with your report, what does the executive do with those reports? So I think there should be a kind of serious collaboration between the executive and the legislature. You know, if truly we want to salvage this country, if truly we want to eliminate corruption, the parliament and the executive must really work together.
You're trying to say you've done your part.
Yes, exactly. We've done our part. I'll give you a critical example. You'll be carrying out an investigation. Let me give an example, like Nigerian Port Authority. We are carrying out an investigation bordering on infractions of Procurement Act. Even when NPA is aware that an investigation is going on, the authority still continue to observe the provisions of this law in breach. Why should an agency be engaging a foreign company when you advertise and you're asking for a Nigerian company? Even by provision of order 5, executive order 5 that Mr. President issued, which seeks to protect local content. Why should you disregard such? So people carry out as if nothing will happen, as if they're untouchable in this country. So the executive, but one thing I know and that I respect is that if anything is brought to the attention of Mr. President, I assure you, President Buhari will do the needful.
Except that he hasn't on the council.
Yes, exactly. But I just tell you. So, and I'm also using this medium to urge Mr. President. To urge Mr. President to inaugurate that council.
Well, it's at this point that we will be dropping the gavel today. Thanks for staying with me. I'm Lanre Lasisi. Take care.